So, welcome everybody to what I think is a really interesting topic today. We have the wonderful Michelle Landau from the United States, from San Diego. And Michelle is one of our partners in the US. And her and her gorgeous husband, Mark Landau, run the San Diego Relationship Code. And Michelle, really interesting topic, right? You're on mute. There we go.
Yes, I love this topic. Um, it's one of my favorite topics to discuss. I think it's something that um, is rising within women in our culture
Mhm.
today.
Yep.
Um, this feeling like this can't be all there is and feeling exhausted and tired from carrying it all. So I love this conversation. I'm really excited to talk about it with you.
So let's start with defining it, right? What is the superwoman syndrome? Like, what exactly is that?
Yeah, so it's actually a term that was coined in the 80s,
Hmm.
and it has to do with women feeling like they have to be it all and do it all. Like they have to be
Mm,
good at everything um, without help, without asking for help, or without rest. So it's this pressure to fulfill every role,
yep.
to be good at career, to be good at motherhood, to be a great wife, to keep a clean home. It's almost like work like we don't raise families and raise families like we don't work. And to have to do it all perfectly too, to
Mm,
feel worthy.
yes. And what happens if you don't do it perfectly?
Well,
How does
we
that
work
show up
hard.
for women?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we beat ourselves up. You know, we think there's an expectation for us. You know, there's even pride about, oh my God, she's amazing. She does it all. She
Yes.
works, she
Yes.
cleans, cook, right? It's almost like celebrated in our culture.
Yeah.
And there's an
Totally agree.
immense amount of pressure to uphold all those spinning plates.
I remember
And
I was probably about maybe 6 or 7 years ago here in Australia. There was like a National Mothers Award, and it was given to some lady in Adelaide, and she was held up as, the perfect mother. And she had like 6 kids. She was running around doing everything. Like, I mean, everything. Literally, he was like sitting on the couch with his feet up. And she was exhausted. Like, you just see it. Like, she was completely exhausted. And culturally, that's what we've held up as the expectation of what women should be able to do. But is that possible? Like, can a woman actually do it all?
I think every woman on this call would say, um, we sure have tried. But in the midst of it, you know, just to be perfectly honest, I can speak for myself, is that
Mm,
I don't become, I become not a very nice person.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's when I started to really get this is not working for me.
Mm,
That I am not the woman that I imagined I'd be.
yeah,
Um, I was not kind with my husband. I was not kind with the kids. I was irritable and short-tempered because
yeah,
I was on a rat wheel that I couldn't get off of.
yeah. So do you think like that cultural expectation that we have of women to be able to do it all, for women themselves, they've sort of taken unconsciously taken that on, and that now has become the most important thing instead of relationship with husband, relationship with kids. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Again, I think I speak for many women when I say when I was growing up, you know, my parents were immigrants from the Soviet Union. So when my mom came to America, she was like, the sky's the limit. It's all about my
Mm,
career. It's all about providing an amazing life for my kids. And, you know, I'm going to learn the language and make money. And, you know, this wave, the rise of feminism, was a big push for women to prioritize success,
yes.
um, which, really hurt us in certain ways. And because what I've learned in deconditioning myself,
Hmm.
this drive that I've always had to be successful, because
Yes.
I thought that success equals security and safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
And given the world we live in, we can now see what we think is safe and secure may not actually be within the next 10 years when it comes to our careers and professions, you know. So, um, I was raised in this culture of as long as you have a job, as long as you're making money, whether or not you have a partner, it's fine if you do and it's fine if you don't, because I can do anything a man can do.
Yeah. Which is
And
true. Which is
yes,
true. Women can do anything that a guy can do, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about cultural expectation against what actually works in reality and what men and women need, because we certainly know, and maybe a lot of people that are watching don't know, but like the way that our brains form and are developed and the hormones that they use are completely different. So what a man perceives is going on and wants is very different to what a woman perceives is going on and wants. And that cultural push of I've got to have the job, I've got to have the super career, I've got to be the amazing woman that can handle it all, juggle the kids and get them to school, and then afterwards take them to ballet and basketball and soccer and God knows what else, and be on fire in the bedroom as well. All that stuff is an expectation that one culture puts on women, but secondly, women are now taking it on themselves. Would that be fair? Like, and not just on your own example, but certainly with all the clients that we deal with across the world, whether it's in the US or Australia, that seems to be exactly the same, right? This expectation is there.
yes. And it's actually contributed to a dynamic that creates the woman as mother.
Yes.
So
Yes. That's a
so
really good
this
point,
is
right?
where, we hear a lot of women come to discovery calls or to this conversation, to our work, and
Mm.
say, it feels like my husband's like another child.
Yes.
What the part that we don't see about the Superwoman syndrome is
Hmm.
that we as women are setting up a dynamic by
Yeah.
handling it all
Yes.
that creates a mother-child relationship, the very thing that we don't want in partnership.
Yeah.
Because our beautiful men are like, well, I mean, seems like she's got it. So
Exactly, because
probably likes it.
men need to be needed, right? And if she's handling it all, it's like, well,
Yep.
okay, she doesn't really need me. I'm just going to go over here, focus on work, tidying up the yard, assisting with the kids occasionally, whatever she permits me to do. Because the
Ugh,
other side of that is women don't want to give up the control, because then that aspect of security and safety cuts in. And it's like, whoa, if I let go of control, is it going to get done? Correct.
yes.
And so
Yes.
for you personally, like in your journey, after you met us like 6 or 7 years ago now,
Mhm.
what was it like for you, one, realizing that there was this syndrome going on? And secondly, how did you gradually let go of that? How did you get to
Mm,
the point where you could let go of the control of everything? And was that a challenge for
yes.
you?
Probably my biggest challenge, to be honest. I think the first thing was getting really clear on the cycle that I was setting up between Mark and myself. Um,
Hmm.
because I started to see the whole cycle. So I would take everything on, then I would build up with overwhelm, resentment, stress, and then I would take it out on him. And then, over criticize him for not doing it the way that I would. And then I would feel guilt and shame. And then I would take it on again. And I was just in this vicious cycle that I couldn't get out of. And it
Explain
wasn't,
the, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt, but explain the guilt and shame, Michelle. What do you mean by guilt and shame?
sort of what I was talking about before, which is like I was becoming the woman that I didn't like. I didn't like who I was. Like I
Yeah.
didn't like who I was becoming.
So stressed,
My
uptight.
husband, we say when we came into this work that, I was like, I was an emasculating. Um, and I never thought of myself that way. And I didn't want to be that. That doesn't actually produce the results in life that I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have a thriving, passionate, playful marriage. I was just stressed all the time.
Mm.
So I think starting to see the cycle functioning in lifetime was the first step of me saying, okay, I'm actually setting this whole thing up because I keep on taking everything on. And
Mm.
when I started to first tell the truth, in the code, our very first slide that we go through is
Mm.
tell the truth. So if you can't do that, there's no transformation possible. So I started with telling the truth that I didn't like who I was becoming and I didn't want to be that person. And
Mm.
I knew I needed to change. And it started with asking for help. It started with trusting Mark
Mm.
with the little things like something as simple as, leaving him with the kids and not telling him what to make them for dinner when I'm gone. Like really, like I know that sounds superficial or
Simplistic, but no,
simplistic, but like I would literally say there's this in the fridge and this in the freezer. And it was like I was mothering him. I didn't know I
yes,
was at the time,
yes,
but he would actually, in that dynamic, he would start to question what he was giving them because he
yes,
wanted to make them what I said to make them instead
yes.
of what the shift that I made was, baby, you got it. I'm out of here. Whatever you give them is perfect. I love you. You got this.
Yes, because the other dynamic, right, is like a woman comes from, well, I want to make sure the kids, the superficial reason is I want to make sure the kids are taken care of. So I'm going to instruct my husband exactly what to feed them. I probably even pre-prepared the meals and put them in the fridge, right? So that he's totally, got it covered. The problem with that is that if he did take some initiative and he cooked something else, then it would be like, what did you cook that for? That's where Superwoman would come across from, right? What did you cook that for? And that immediately takes away his independence. And I think the other aspect of that is going to be to ask for help is a woman shifting to her feminine state, going vulnerable and really
Mhm.
asking for what she actually needs, which, as and I can't obviously talk as a woman, but I can certainly talk from, like thousands of clients that are women. And they all say that it's very difficult to do that,
Mhm.
to go vulnerable and ask for help. So that must have been one of the barriers that you came up against.
Absolutely. I think you know this story well when I've always had my own job because I was raised to always have my own thing just in case. You never
Hmm.
know what's going to happen, but you always want to have. And I remember the time that I was like, I can't do it all. And I knew I had to take a leap and leave the job I had because I needed to do it for my own sanity. Um, and it was like, I always say it felt like jumping off a cliff with no parachute on. It felt so scary and so exposing and so vulnerable for me to let go of this thing that I clung on to. But when I did, like when I did, um, I had never felt as alive as I
Yes,
did when I let go. In that vulnerability, you start to feel things because you're
yes,
not just like bulldozing and making things happen and producing results and all the things that we're conditioned to value as
yeah,
women.
yes,
And yes, I was vulnerable. Yes, I had to depend on Mark, but in that he rose. When I let go and I started to be a team instead of two people living parallel lives side by side, we became one. Um, it's like that exhilaration of living in trust and feeling vulnerable was the closest I could get ever up until that point of being in my feminine,
right.
um, where I was. feeling everything around me because I was so vulnerable. Um, and and it's scary. It's
Yeah,
scary sometimes
for
to
sure.
live in trust, and it is scary to live in that vulnerability. But
So that point you made before, right, about when you let go and Mark stepped up.
yes.
There must have been times though when he stepped up and did it completely wrong.
Oh yeah, like
Because I
definitely.
often have women say, "I've tried that, Brett. Like
Yes.
I've let go, I've stepped in the feminine, let him do it, and he's just done it completely wrong."
Yep. It's a practice. It's
Hmm.
a lifelong practice for us. And I want more than anything for my man to live in the fullest expression of who he is. That's why I married him, because
Yeah.
I saw the man inside. And I knew that hammering him and criticizing him was not getting me what I wanted, what I truly wanted. And I knew that the only way to do it was um, to reconnect to the part of me that is playful and
Mm,
seductive
mm,
and sexy and, you know, connected to not just my intellect, but my
yeah.
body. And it's really hard to do that when you're going, 100 miles per hour every day, just making things happen and getting shit done.
Yeah.
If and that's part of, letting go of the Superwoman syndrome is a one, um, a remembering of we are not human doings, we are human beings,
Mm,
especially women. Like when we're in being, there is a magic and there is a creativity and there is a life force
yeah.
um, to us that our beautiful men don't have.
Well,
And
interesting. I was listening to a neuro scientist yesterday on YouTube, and he was talking about the differences in male and female brains. And he's married. He's in his 60s. He's been married a long time. And one of the things he was talking about is like that difference in perception. And he was talking around, hormonal differences in the brain and the fact that women will perceive and pick up things completely differently to men. But not if you're in the masculine state, not if you're just being driven all the time and you're coming from your head. You literally, as a woman, have the ability to shut down those areas of your brain that would make those perceptions you're talking about. And
Mhm.
so that yin and yang dynamic inside a marriage really helps this superwoman syndrome collapse. But I guess on the other side too, if you're a guy married to a superwoman, what would you suggest to the men? And before you answer that, let me say to everyone that's listening right now, we always appreciate questions, guys. If you haven't as yet, there's a chat button down the bottom of your screen. If you move your mouse down there, it'll pop up. You'll see the controls and you'll see chat. And if you've got some questions or even just comments about what we're talking about, please put them up in the chat. So, what would you say, Michelle, to a guy that's married to a superwoman? Like, how does he break through? How does he have a conversation about that? Because that's going to be like walking on glass, right?
Yes.
Very
Um,
difficult topic to raise.
yeah, I think the first step is setting time aside
Mhm.
to say, baby, like I love you and I see you. And I know like, just acknowledging everything that she does, all the things that she thinks about and also being honest about what you see, right?
Mm.
Because women appreciate truth.
Yes, true.
Like we value a man who has integrity, who tells the truth, who calls us out. We don't always like it initially, but I know one of the things I fell in love with Mark was that he was one of the only people who had the courage to tell me the truth about
Yeah.
things. And even though it stings sometimes. And so, I see you and you're exhausted.
Mm.
And I love you, and I want you to know that I'm here, and I got you, and it's about first for men doing what you say you're going to do
Mm.
in the small things, like when you say you're going to do something, do it because she can't actually let go if you're not showing up consistently because
Yeah.
she can't trust that. So I think the first thing is showing up, like our men showing up, doing what they know to do, even thinking ahead a little bit, like what do I know she's going to want done or want addressed, even if it's scheduling a kingdom meeting, like, hey, baby,
Yeah.
I want to get on the same page about this week. I set aside some time. We're going to go out for tea or coffee this Sunday. The kids are taken care of. I'm going to have so and so watch them, and I want to just get on the same page with you. So it's almost like, how can I get in front of her a little bit?
Yes.
It's the little things for us women. It's not the big things. It's not like taking it, in the middle of our chaos, taking us away and surprising us with a 2-day trip to the beach city. It's like panic.
Or
It's
whipping you
like,
away to a hotel, right, for like a 2-day lovemaking session.
yeah.
For a woman, that is going to be like, oh my God, that's just something else I've got to deal with, right?
Oh my gosh, now I have all these logistics. Now I have all the things on my to-do list, and I
Yes.
have to work out logistics of me being gone. Who's going to watch the dog and the kids and
Yes, exactly.
right?
So
So,
I gave an example. We were talking before the call, and Marie has a feminine retreat coming up this weekend, and we have some lady facilitators coming to our house before they go down south to do it. And she's like thinking about what she's going to cook on Saturday night, even though it's my night to cook, right? So I said to her, well, I can just do my salmon and coconut sauce dish on Saturday night. And she was like, oh, yes, like that'd be wonderful if you did that. So that's the type of thing you mean, right? Getting in front of. And for men, again, talking about, one of the great things I think we do in terms of assisting couples and having great marriages is two main things. One, helping everybody understand the biological differences between men and women. And secondly, the cultural differences between men and women. And thirdly, understanding that when we suggest a strategy, like you did earlier about what a guy should say to his wife, gentlemen, the words are 7% of the effect of what you're saying. It is all about the state that you're in when you're saying it. And likewise for women, if you want to influence your man, you need to be in the feminine state. If you're in the masculine, because that's one of the things that Todd is raised here, right? How does my wife understand her part in being a superwoman and the dynamics it sets up rather than her simply blaming her husband for everything? That blaming the husband bit now in our culture is part of this superwoman syndrome that we're talking about. And it is chronic because women don't think they're blaming their husbands. They believe what they're doing is making suggestions, having a discussion. That's what it feels like to them. To a man, what it feels like is an argument. And you can make your man wrong for that, but that is universal amongst men. Why? Because from a evolutionary point of view, women are on top of everything that's going to happen in their lives together. The kids, the bedroom, the groceries, the finances, like everything. Whereas a man's brain is more designed for immediate danger. She's looking for the bigger picture of where the danger may be coming. His brain is, where's the danger right now? I'm going to deal with it right now. Here comes the tiger. I'm going to kill the deer, whatever it might be. It's immediate. So in our current culture that we've created, for men, it's like if it's not immediate, it's not going to be noticed or dealt with. And that can be very frustrating for women, right? Because they're already 5 steps ahead. And sometimes I joke about like, we use the analogy of the kingdom and being inside a castle together, against the rest of the world. And the moat outside the castle, she'll be like, there's a slight crack in the wall over there. That could be a problem coming up. And he'll be like walking past her going, nah, he'll be fine. No problem. And then it starts to leak water. And she'll be like, look, It's leaking water. You need to deal with this. And they'd be like, yeah, I'll just putty it up a little bit. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Next minute, there's a flood coming in, right? And then she's like, of course, I told him.
You.
I told him, and he didn't do anything about it. So, gentlemen, again, this is not blaming you, it's explaining that we have to realize that our cognitive function
Yeah.
is very different to hers. And this also contributes to this superwoman syndrome because then she's like, Michelle, you're telling me, to move to my family. You're telling me to get out of my masculine and stop being superwoman. I'll leave it to him, it doesn't get done. But there's a dynamic there, right? There's a conversation there on Todd's question. And that is how you approach her, understanding the differences between men and women. That your words were, I've got you, babe. I understand what you're going through. This is using feminine type language to her, but coming from the masculine state when you say it. And then she's like, oh, okay, this is worth listening to. He's making an effort here to know me because women want to be known and understood. Gentlemen, if you want to be known and understood, you're in the wrong state. Men don't need to be known and understood. We need encouragement or a thank you when we do something. That's one of the intrinsic differences. So when you were gradually working this out with Mark and he was constantly failing, how did you step back into that place of femininity, stop being superwoman?
A big shift that I made with Mark was really choosing to see the good in who he was. Like one thing that you learn in our work is that men want to please, like they want to make us happy and they
Mm,
want us to be happy. And I even if he didn't do things the way that I would have done them, we talked about it. Like it was just one baby step at a time. He
mm,
made an effort to, like when he would see me stressed or overwhelmed, we talked about, hey, babe, in the short term, like what is something I can do to support you when I see you overwhelmed and stressed? And I would say something like, I really love a bath. A bath really helps me to slow down. A bath really helps me. And he now knows when I've had a busy day or a stressful day, he'll know to get the bath running for me. That's not for every woman the same, but for me,
yes,
I think one of the biggest things, Brett, that I had to start doing because again, there's our part, right? Like it starts with us as women
yes, yes,
because unfortunately, we can't control anyone else. So our men on the call, you can hold space and you can show up and you can really be present and you can ask, how can I support you in the moments where I know you're overwhelmed and stressed and really hear that and write it down, whatever you need to do to to really show up for her in those moments. But as women, we have to actually get to know ourselves by number one, how do we care for ourselves? People think that self-care is like going to spas and getting massages, and um, that might be great, but it's knowing ourselves is being able to slow down enough to get to know ourselves,
yes.
to be still.
And
Um,
that's a great point you're making, right? So self-care for a woman can also not just be those things, there's nothing wrong with those, but it can also be just slowing down. Like stop putting that pressure on yourself to have to do everything. And those biological differences that we were talking about before in terms of women see everything. And so again, the neurologist was talking about this. Like when a woman wakes up in the morning, it is a constant stream of things to do and thought the whole day until her head hits that pillow at night. For men, that's not the case. For men, it's more dealing with something in a box and then moving to the next box and the next box and the next box. But for her, it's all interconnected neurologically as well. So if she's thinking about stuff, then it's like, I've got to pick up the kids this afternoon after school. Do they have their homework to do? Have they got their books? Did they remember their lunchbox? Um, what am I preparing for dinner tonight that's connected to that? Oh, I need to stop by the supermarket on the way home to pick up that ingredient I need for dinner tonight. And when we get home, um, both of them have got homework, so I'm not going to be handling both of them. That means I'm going to need Mark to come in and handle all that thought goes on, right? It just all connects together. For men, it's not like that. It's like I'm going to pick the kids up from school. Full stop. End of story. One task, one job. I've got the kids, I bring them home. I remember, like, just illustrating how singular men can be. I was busy one day. Marie had said to me in the morning, "Oh, can you pick up the kids from school in the afternoon?" I went, "Yeah, sure, no problem, right?" Didn't put it in my diary, didn't have a reminder set. So comes like 3:15, the kids are out of school at 3, and I look at my watch and there was something that I needed to remember, wasn't there, around 3 o'clock? And then I'm like, oh, holy shit, I meant to pick the kids up from school. And jump in the car, of course, tear down there. The kids are, standing there, with the teacher waiting to be picked up. Of course, your wife hears about it later that the
Oh,
dumb person forgot to go and pick them up. Because the way our brains work is that incident of picking the children up is not connected to anything unless we connect it to something. And men often don't do that. That's why, ladies, I'm sure you've said it. And again, gentlemen, I'm a guy. This is not a criticism. It's an observation of how we operate. And there's good things about it too, in that we can be very single focused and get a lot of shit done really, really well. But in terms of the dynamics of a family, it can also work against us. So she'll give us a list, 5 things. We go down to the shop and we bring back 4. And she's like, "Did you get the milk?" And we're like, "Oh, no, I forgot the milk." For us, it's no big deal. For her, that cascades. It's not just the milk. Then it means like it's what I'm going to do for breakfast tomorrow morning. I needed the milk to prepare the meal tonight. That means I'm going to have to go down there and get it myself now. It cascades into all these other things because a woman's brain is connected to everything. And so, again, that can be an advantage in terms of multitasking. Numerous scientific studies show that women are much better at multitasking than men are. But in the day-to-day battleground of home, it can also be a trap, right, Michelle?
damn. Especially when we don't understand those differences. And
Yes.
when we don't understand them, it's very hard to find compassion for each other,
Yes.
which is the bridge, which is what alchemizes our relationships, is when because no one ever taught us. No one ever taught us the differences.
No.
And so we're treating each other like I'm treating Mark like a woman,
Yeah.
expecting him to remember all the things that I remember. And when he doesn't,
Yes.
it's like it sets me off. And it's like all the stories of, not only my stories of him, but just to go deeper, what
Yes.
I modeled growing up and what my mom's stories of my dad's were, right? Because I share very openly that, I used to have a view of Mark that he was useless and good for nothing. That came way before Mark came into the picture.
Yes. And so
And
this
it
intergenerational trauma that we talk about is essential to recognize. It's the other pillar of what we do. Because if we don't stop it, then what we're going to do is we're going to pass it to our children. Those beliefs they model, they don't just model what we say or do, they model how we are emotionally. And if we have that emotional belief in us around men or women, that women, are not trustworthy, that, they're ultra in their masculine and they're always going to try and control me. So I have to resist that, and I often see now in our culture, again, particularly with social media, men are like, there's no way I'm going to let a woman dominate me. I'm going to dominate her. Dude, good luck. Like that is not going to work for you because the women that you can attract that you will dominate, eventually you will run out of attraction for them because you are totally controlling them in a relationship. No relationship is about control. Relationship is about us working together to build something together bringing our unique differences together to build that thing. And equally, men can make women wrong. Women can be, from a man's point of view, and ladies don't take this the wrong way, but from a man's point of view, some of the things they do don't make sense because they're doing it from an emotional place. They're doing it from the point of view of emotionally, this is what I should be doing here. As an example, would be if you watch a group of women get together, there's going to be lots of conversation and lots of words. Why? Because women use many more words than men, and men have what's called diffuse psychological arousal. What that means is, gentlemen, that too many words and it literally becomes like a stress to us. And our brain will literally shut down against those words unless you train yourself to be in the right state to absorb and take on those words. Again, part of our trainings, so that it functions, it works. But coming back to being a superwoman, Michelle,
Yes.
when Mark is running around, helping with the kids, cooking, tidying up the kitchen, attempting to please you, right, to make you happy, what is it that you really want, though?
Well, again, it's like you said, it doesn't matter what he's doing, it's the place he's doing it from.
Yeah.
And so when you say when he's running around trying to please me, I'm already like, ah, right? Because we don't want to be pleased, but we want to know that he's present and he's showing up.
Define that more because some of the guys on this
Yeah,
call
that's
are going to
great.
be like,
Yep.
what on earth is she talking about here? What, you don't
Yeah.
want me to like clean the kitchen and take out the rubbish and do all that stuff? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so there's a way to do it that's you're looking for an attaboy from her.
Yes.
Like you're giving to get.
Yes.
That energy we pick up on like a radar, like a siren. Like it's like a siren going off in the environment because it doesn't feel authentic and genuine. We feel like
Mm.
you're giving it to get, um,
Mm.
which
It's like
is
when a guy's needy for sex, right? If a guy's needy for it, then what a
yes.
woman feels immediately is it's all about him.
Yep, that's like what we talk about non-sexual affection.
Yes.
Like if you're being affectionate because you're trying to get something from me, is like there's like a repelling
Ye-
happening,
Yes.
energetic. It's in
Yes.
the unspoken. But
Yes.
when Mark does those things from being a man and wanting to, being an equal partner and wanting to contribute and um, because he feels it's his responsibility to show up, um, then I don't feel anything off in the space.
Yes.
I actually don't feel anything. I just feel like we're partners.
Yes.
And it's an amazing feeling because he doesn't need anything from me
Yes.
when he does
That,
it.
and again, that helps you not be Superwoman. Coming back to Hell's question again, because his question is like, well, she's the boss at work. She comes home and she's still in boss. So, Hell, to use another analogy, it's like the Devil Wears Prada. If you've ever seen that movie, right? This woman who's just like ultra focused on work. And what happens midway in the movie? The guy, her husband, just walks out and leaves. And that's because she's in her masculine state. It's just all about work. And you were talking about that earlier with the Superwoman syndrome, that culturally, when women, got the vote, started to work in the economy, then it became like, well, I can do anything that a man can do. And that's absolutely true. You can. There's no reason why you shouldn't. But just like a man, you can easily get that out of balance. And when it gets out of balance, what happens in the household is, Michelle?
Well, resentment builds.
Yeah. Explain why resentment builds.
Well, I think it's, I was reading Hal's chat, his question of wanting to care for her.
Mm.
And I think that's also a conversation that needs to be had. Like, how do you feel most cared for?
Mm,
Because sometimes it's easy to assume, and we talk about this a little bit more in our weekends, but sometimes when we talk about the love languages and how we do our love language on our partner, but that might not be what lands for them as feeling loved.
correct.
So, you know, when Mark is does it regardless of whether he gets a thank you or not, that's really attractive to me. Um, Yes. And but when he's doing it in order to get something from me, like even though I know now I love appreciating him for what he does, but that's something I had to learn because initially I was like, well, why do I have to thank him? I do everything too.
Yep.
I learned the rules of the game, and part of the game for our beautiful men is appreciation. But I get to give it freely now, not out of obligation.
Yep.
Um,
And I think
yeah.
to for Hal and everyone else to understand the way that we look at relationships is influenced by the schooling that we had, the role models that we had, the culture we've grown up in. And because of schooling, particularly, it's very easy to think that communication is words. Hal and everybody else, let me clarify that for you. Communication is not words. Words are actually a very small proportion of the actual communication that goes on inside a relationship. Most of it, as Michelle was referring to before, is unseen, unspoken communication that is far more powerful. A woman can immediately tell when a man's in the masculine state because of the pheromones in the air around us. She picks up his higher level of testosterone. How does she do that? With her olfactory senses, with her smell. That sense of picking up the testosterone literally in the air immediately has a physiological effect on her brain. It changes her brain hormones. So when she picks that up, she can start to relax. She feels that from him, and her levels of cortisol will decrease, and her levels of oxytocin will increase by as much as 30%. In her body simply from that unspoken communication of him being in that masculine state. Now, the reality is, most men in our culture, whether Australia, US, UK, Europe, India, China, it doesn't matter where, even Russia, are not in that masculine state of certainty. They're in a state of running around in a normal sort of relaxed state, trying to keep her happy because again, part of this dynamic in the superwoman syndrome is that men want relationships and life to be like that. Women, it would kill them if life was like that because they want to experience the full range of emotions. Now, the man's like, whoa, hang on, what are you doing up here? Come back down here where I am. Or what are you so sad about? Come back up here and just, it's not that bad, is what a man would say. It's not that bad. And how would that land with a woman if a man says that to her?
We either want to punch them or run away,
Yes.
um, explode, blow up, right? Like there's a lot of different flavors, just depending on who you are. Um, but essentially, what that feels like for us as women is like you're shutting us down. We feel unheard and unloved, essentially. That's when we feel unheard, when you don't bring your full presence, when you're not attuned to what we're saying and how we're being in a conversation, we feel unloved, like you don't care enough to hear what we're saying.
And
Um,
here's interesting, right? Because again, here's one of these biological differences. So a man's brain is more orientated towards listening to logic and facts. Because without logic and facts, back in the day, it could kill you. Right? You have to be clear on logic and facts. If there's a lion's paw print in the dirt in front of you, that's a fact, and that means something that you have to take acknowledgement and awareness of. Women brains are orientated towards connection, communication, and emotions. And a woman can walk into a room and pick up the mood, pick up the emotions. She can look around the room. She can feel what that woman over there is feeling. She can look at that guy and understand exactly what he's feeling. So the mirror neurons that she has are much more developed. That does not mean that a man cannot develop those and be able to read his wife better. And what we've been able to see is that when a man is in his masculine state, those mirror neurons are far more available to him to read her. So when you were talking about like being heard and understood, what a man's going to think is, oh, the language she's using. No, gentlemen, it's not the language she's using, it's what she's feeling in her body as she's talking. What emotions is she experiencing? And very strange for men, but again, often women are using language and talking to work out what they feel about something. So she might start on one topic and end up with five different topics in one conversation. And if it's only five, you would be lucky, gentlemen. It's probably going to be more like 10 or 20. But in doing that, she's going to work out what she feels. And what a woman wants from a man is a man who's in his masculine state that can read those emotions and go, oh, okay, this is what's really going on for her. Let's talk about the emotions. Let's talk about her stress. Let's talk about her concern for Johnny and why Johnny's not doing well at school, even though she's not talking about Johnny. That's what's really going on. And then men are like, whoa, hang on, stop, hang on. How do we get to Johnny? She hasn't talked about Johnny. Yeah, she has. She's mentioned the kids and she's concerned about the kids and how he's going. She hasn't mentioned school, but that's part of being able to read a woman, right, Michelle? If a man can do that, how would that make a woman feel?
Amazing. Amazing. One
Yeah,
of the things that, you taught us, the three magic words in any conversation with a woman, tell me more. Tell me
yes,
more. Tell
yeah,
me more about that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, like if you want to see a woman bloom and blossom and really open up and give herself to you, be interested in seeing beyond the words for
yes.
what she's communicating emotionally.
Yeah, for men on the call, it's going to be like this is a brand new learning. We should have been taught this stuff in school. Sure, we had the sex education class. Yeah, like that was useless. But there was no communication class around, okay, how do you understand a woman? How do you understand a man? What do they actually really need? And that's what we provide. That's what we do inside our code events, on social media, our online classes, etc. And so if any of you are interested in that, one great way of doing that is, we just put those links up now, is to be able to do a discovery call, apply this information to your actual relationship so that both of you can see what's really going on, not the topics you're talking about. It's never going to be the topics. It's always going to be the unspoken communication around what a woman really needs and what a man needs. And gentlemen, we've talked a lot about, what a woman needs, but let me go into, in terms of the Superwoman syndrome, what a man needs. You need to be able to provide her with the certainty, Todd, that is going to not come through the words you're using. That is going to come through your state and learning how to master that state. And that is a learnt behavior. It's not evident around us. We're not going to get it from our bros. We're not going to get it from our family because they're not doing it either. But again, this is not just our ideas about this. This is research science that clearly shows that these impacts of changing our state, changes our hormonal levels, has an impact immediately on our partner. It will allow her to let go of all that control, allow her to step into her feminine state if she sees and experiences that her man is stepping up. This is the ultimate solution to the Superwoman syndrome. But as Michelle said, for her, it's going to be about making that decision to let go and stop doing it.
Yes.
And, Marianne, one of our clients, is on the call and she put up a great comment there. Being a reformed superwoman who had a sudden stop forced on her. So she had a health problem and she had to stop being superwoman. But as she got to experience, it was greatly beneficial to their relationship. In fact, their relationship is unrecognizable now compared to what it was 3 or 4 years ago when we met them. And I know for you, Michelle, that like we talked about at the beginning of the call, that definitely has been a challenge, right? To get to that place inside of you. And I think, as you mentioned, for you, it was more around you had enough awareness to be able to see the impact it was having on not only you, but I think for you, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think for you, it was more not so much the impact it was having on you, but it was more the impact it was having on the kids and on Mark that made the change. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone was on eggshells and, we set the tone in the home.
Yeah.
And I never
That's
really,
a great point, right? So I just expand on that a little bit more, right? So women set that tone, right, in the home.
yes, like I had to learn the hard way, like when I'm good, they're good. Like
Yeah.
it's that simple. Um, I was just like thrown into doing everything automatically. It was just like conditioned into me to just handle it all. Um,
Yes.
I saw my mom do it. And so that was the record I had spinning in my head of what it was to be a wife and a mother, right? You just handle it all. But when I started to see my kids as they got older, feeling like, how's mom going to be today? It brought me to my knees, um,
Mm.
because I didn't realize how much I was communicating in the unspoken of how not okay I actually was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I started to see anxiety rise in my 9-year-old, right? Like
Mm.
I had to take a really, really honest look at myself.
Yeah.
Uh, um, okay, this is not working. Like
Yeah.
there's no magic happening here. There's no fun. There's no playfulness. There's no, right? Because I wasn't making any space for it
Yeah.
by
And, and,
saying,
and if I can clarify there, right, it's not like there weren't times of fun. There were times of fun going out and, doing activities and the kids are having a great time. And there were times in the house where there would be fun, playing games and things like that. But the overall tone was one of stress, of you being stressed because of all this stuff that Superwoman has to do. And
but even
naturally,
Brett, if I could be really honest,
yeah,
even the fun, I was doing fun.
yes,
I
okay,
wasn't being fun
yes,
because I actually, it wasn't until I
yes,
started saying no or "Babe,
yes,
can you take this
yes,
on
yes,
or I actually need you to take this on,
yeah,
uh, uh, or even asking a family member or asking my kids to make their own breakfast or whatever it was. It wasn't until I started consciously doing that where I started to have some breathing room around, okay, like I could actually, like, I had to do a lot of unlearning of, because there was a period where I was like, well, shoot, like, what do I do now? I'm so used to doing all the time. I don't even know what to do if I'm not doing. I don't know how to just be. How do
yes,
I just be? That was so foreign to me because I was so used to doing all the time.
yes.
And it was only when I started implementing that I really actually started having fun.
Interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. And again, this is one of the great reasons why we do this work is to stop these patterns, this intergenerational trauma being passed down to our children. This is a great example of how we unconsciously pass it to our children. They pick it up and they then, just as the same as you did or I did, we then become that stressed mother or stressed father. And what the kids experience out of that is what we see now as an epidemic in our culture and society is anxiety. So this
Yeah.
superwoman unknowingly is creating this epidemic of anxiety in our children. And, we could go into divorce, but that's going to be another topic of conversation in terms of the devastation, that causes our children. But I think if we just quickly hark back to this really all started after World War II when women in that period had to step up. There was no option. They had to do it. Most of the men were away. And then the baby boom generation modeled that behavior. And that's really where this superwoman was born. Then we went into the 60s, and it's like she can do anything that men can do. And then it's like we've got rights, and absolutely they should have rights. Absolutely, you can do whatever a man can do. But like with men, as I said earlier, it can easily get out of control, particularly for women, given the way that your gorgeous brains work, which is a positive. It's a great thing. Because as king and queen, when we operate well inside the kingdom, she's going to bring things that he is just not going to see at all. But equally, he will bring things that she's not going to see. And when we can appreciate those differences and work together, that's where we really start to create like an unbelievable relationship. And we hope for the guys that are watching this, we've inspired you to want to learn more. And as I said earlier, the links are up here. You can also get them from our website in doing a discovery call with Michelle and Mark or with our team here in Australia. And in that direct way, you can find out how this is very much applicable to your relationship. We're very passionate about relationships. We're very passionate about love. We're very passionate about ceasing intergenerational trauma and stopping this being passed to our children and creating a new culture and a new world more focused on love and families. So, Michelle, thank you so much for being here. It's been great to
Oh,
have you,
having me. And
and I'm
thank you,
sure we'll have you on
everyone.
here again.
Thank you to everyone who is engaging in this conversation with us. It's so important. It's so important for our beautiful women in this culture to, and what's great is a lot of women are waking up to this, and so that's really, really great news.
Yes.
Um, and we need it. We need it for our health. We need it for our well-being.
Mm.
Um, we need it so that there's enough space for our beautiful men to rise and be the powerful, amazing men that they're meant to be. Because I know that many women that I speak to are exhausted and tired from carrying it all in. They don't want to, but they don't know how. They don't know how to stop. Um, and um, and it starts here by,
I think that's a great point too. And for the guys that are on the call, it's like we haven't been shown and we're not clear on how to rise as men, husbands and fathers in our relationships anymore. And what we show in this thing here, the Crucible course that we run for men, is very much designed to help men get very clear about what is the right path, what is the way now in the 2020s as a man to rise as a husband, father, and man yourself in our culture right now. So, again, thanks everyone for being here. And
thank you.
Todd, thank you for that comment. We appreciate that, my brother. And we will see you guys again. So, being part of the Facebook group, there are regular talks like these coming up and topics already posted up in the group. If you go to the top of the group, scroll across, you'll see events and see more of these talks. Michelle, everybody, thank you so much for being here. And we will see you all again soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.